Hello, everyone. Welcome to Oversteer episode 85, if I remember correctly. I never check. I should check. My name is Dimitris Bizas. If you are a regular on the show, you might think, wait a second, he's Greek. Why he's speaking English? Well, the reason I'm usually speaking English is one, I have a guest. Two, I am really bad in Greek, so I try to speak in English now. This time it's the first one. It's an honor. It's an honor. It's an honor. It's a pleasure, and it's a great opportunity to catch up, even though we talk every day, with a dear colleague and friend, Mr. Ed Spencer from MotorLAT and from various other things amongst his Twitter feed, which is amazing. Ed, welcome.
Thank you, Dimitris. Good to hear from you again.
Yeah, I mean, it's obligatory, okay? If two F1 journalists speak, they should do a podcast together at least 2 or 3 times in their lifetime.
Definitely. Although Go on, you first. Sorry, I jumped in.
No. Go on.
No. I mean, yeah. Unless we're talking about music taste, in which case I don't think you're going to be particularly interested in me talking about Suzanne Vega's 1986 hit "Marlena on the Wall," which I've been listening furiously over the past few days. But it's good to be joined again for another episode.
I'm listening to Nelly, and it's getting hot in here and stuff like that for the past 5 days, non-stop. So I'm not going to judge at all. You're entitled to your music taste. So we're not here to talk about music though, because we're not that kind of podcast, a generic one. I hate them. We're digging a bit to the other podcast. Yeah, I hate you, other podcasts. If you're not Oversteer or anyone from halftone.fm, I hate you. I just wanted to get that out of the way. So we're here to talk about the first 3 Grand Prix of the season, a bit of a recap from the start of the season. Of course, we have 20 more races to go. It's not like we've seen everything we could see, and it's not like the championship has ended. But I think we have a pretty good indication of where things are going, which teams have made it, and which teams have a lot of work to do in order to be more competitive or competitive at all. I'm looking at you, Aston Martin. So I think it was a good opportunity to catch up, Ed. And I don't know, to start, I think I want a generic comment from you. How have you seen this first part of the season? How do you feel that it has all panned out?
I think it's been a fairly decent first few races. Okay, it's Australia was a bit of a generic race. You may not watch again on F1 TV at 2 a.m. with a bucket of popcorn, but I'm fairly happy with what I've seen. The cars look good. The racing's pretty good. The field has been slightly shaken up, but it's not artificially shaken up, if you get what I mean. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with what I'm seeing. Obviously, I would like to see maybe 1 or 2 more winners, but I will take what I can get. I mean, the season is still very young. But yeah, I'm pretty happy. I'm now just getting pumped up for the European season. The European leg of the season, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen 2 races in the Middle East, one in Oceania. Of course, returning to Australia, I think it was a really nice thing to see. And 490,000 people attended the Grand Prix over the 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So it showed that the Aussies really love their F1, and they've missed it. But yeah, I would agree with you. It's we've seen a fairly competitive first part of the season. Of course, now we're talking about the first races that we'll see some upgrades, some teams trying to get better, some teams trying to extract more from their car, the potential of their car, to show more of what their package can do. But yeah, I mean, it was nice. And of course, you cannot be unhappy seeing Ferrari back on top, because they are a historic team, one of the most historic teams, if not the most historic team in F1. And it's really nice to see that after many years of hardships and uh, total dismay in some occasions, they're back on top.
Yeah, it's good to see Ferrari back on top, but there was an inkling in testing that they had the car to beat, and from what we've seen so far this year, they have the most plug-in-play car, and the fact you don't have to do too much of it, and they've got the best engine at the moment. Leclerc is on song. Sainz, up until Australia, was doing very well. It is good to see Ferrari on top, because I think a Ferrari that does well is a sign that the sport is in good health, because we need, with the fact Ferrari is such an historic team, it's always nice to have them in the fight, winning races. When they're not winning, it feels like, okay, it's going to be the same two teams, like for Mercedes and Red Bull. So to have Ferrari in there it's nice. And I've got to say, I mean, the F175 is the most beautiful car on the grid. And I'm saying that as someone who is unbiased, but it just looks beautiful to look at, that burgundy livery. Oh, chef's kiss.
Yeah, it's a nice looking car, and it's one of the few occasions that you see a car and it's not only beautiful in the eye but also beautiful on the timesheets. The looks. A car is beautiful once it's producing good results, but right now I think Ferrari does both, and it's not. I think it's not biased to say that Ferrari should be on top, not on the regular, not letting everyone else have any taste of victory or championships, of course not. But it's different when Ferrari is on top. It's different because it brings back a lot of fans who did not care about F1 when Mercedes or Red Bull were winning. Because those two teams, even though they have enjoyed much success and they have popular drivers on their lineups, especially Mercedes with Hamilton, they just don't have that passion, that kind of vibe around them as Ferrari does. And it's interesting to see that the fact that they used those two really difficult years to prepare for 2022 in a very efficient way, because as you said, it's a plug and play car, which means that you can put it on any kind of track and it will pretty much work, even if it's not the fastest car. As we've seen in Jeddah, it was like 1 or 2 tenths behind Red Bull, or in some occasions on similar pace. So it's not like they have to do a lot of work in order to make that car shoot in a variety of tracks and conditions. But this begs the question. Excuse me. We have to see some upgrading from them. We have to see some new parts from them. And the word is that in Imola, they will not bring any big updates because of the sprint qualifying and the fact that they will lose time from the free practice sessions. They will not have enough time to evaluate the new parts. So are we worried about their prospects of being able to keep up with the pace of upgrading of the other teams, or do we think that they'll stay behind in that particular field?
I'm not at all. I wouldn't. If I was a Tifosi, I wouldn't be too worried. It shows they've got something in hand when they're leaving their upgrades, whilst Mercedes and Red Bull are rushing theirs out. So I definitely don't think there's reasons to be concerned. The sprint race is a bit of a sprint race weekend. It's not really the best time to get the upgrades out, considering that qualifying's on a Friday and then we have this. Well, I wouldn't say it's a race. I would say it's more of an exhibition on Saturday, and then Sunday we have the race. It's not, for me, it wouldn't be the best time. So you might as well leave it till we get into the swing of things, which is Spain. But no, I wouldn't be worried about it. It's a sign for me that Ferrari don't need to worry about upgrading the car. They don't. That's why if they're leaving it, for me, it's a sign that they have got something in hand and they don't have to worry. Whilst Red Bull do have to worry because they have had a quick car, but it's been unreliable. Mercedes, we know, are struggling with their weight and the fact their speed as well. Alpine, of course, bringing a new floor. So no, I wouldn't be too worried.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Red Bull and Mercedes in a few. To conclude the Ferrari part of the podcast. I'll be honest, I'm really impressed by Charles Leclerc. I think not a lot of people believe that he would be so dominant. Okay, he has a car to do that. As we said, F175 is a good car. It's a car that suits, that can be adapted to a variety of circuits and conditions. But the car has to be driven by someone. It's not like it's autonomous. So Charles has done amazingly so far, and it shows that even though he lost out to Carlos Sainz on points last season, the talent and the potential is on Charles' corner of the ring. He is the one who has the capacity or even the talent to do such things, because especially in Australia, he would win by a mile if we didn't have two safety car interruptions, bouncing up the field again. And of course, had Verstappen actually not retired, I mean, the gap would be like 10, 15 seconds. So it seems to me that Charles is the guy to lead them out of that slump, that 14-year slump, and bring them back to a title winning position, and himself as well in the driver's title helm.
Yeah, I think Charles has been pretty excellent. Well, he's not been excellent. He's been fantastic in the first few races. Bahrain, he had Verstappen's number, and he was clever enough to know when he was going to attempt to overtake into turn one. He just kept his cool when Max was locking up. Jeddah, he did sell him the dummy, albeit Max got him back. And Australia, as you said, was a complete domination. I think even when the restart was the second restart, I believe, was quite clumsily done, he still managed to hold the lead, and he still managed to keep Max at bay. So Charles has really impressed me. But I think the problem with why Leclerc briefly went under the radar is because of the fact that in 2020, 2021, he was making rather silly errors, I would say. Monaco in particular, when he lost pole position, and then also through the fact that, he wasn't up there in the podium positions because the car, albeit the SF21 was decent, it wasn't a particularly amazing car. But Charles has always had that quality, to really dominate when he gets the car under him, and now he's got it. So he's been I couldn't really fault him. The only race I could probably not give him 10 was Jeddah, but that was because of the fact that, he didn't end up winning and didn't get the pole position, that weekend as well. But yeah, he's been arguably the star of the season so far, and he will be feeling extra confident going into Imola, knowing the fact there will be over 100,000+ red-cladded Ferrari fans willing him and Carlos on. So yeah, I think he's going to be feeling even more upbeat going into Imola, and that's what you need at the driver. You need that extra slice of confidence going into a weekend, knowing that you've got the car under you, you've got your own potential, and you've got a chance of winning, because a driver easily gets demotivated when they know they're going to be fighting for 5th and 6th.
Yeah, no, he can actually, he can travel to Italy for once after 2019 feeling like he has a chance to win. Of course, he remains the last Ferrari driver to win in Monza, and he will try to be the first in many years to win in Imola as well. But yeah, on the talk about mistakes and Charles, if he makes any mistakes or not, he does. I think he's prone to errors, but it's not like he does that on the regular. I think he's one of those drivers that tries to push the limits of the car and himself. And when he finds that limit and he overdoes it and he crosses that invisible line, then he's trying to back off a bit. Similar to Verstappen, maybe, who tries to always find the limit, cross that invisible line, and then get back behind that line, get back behind that limit, or on the verge of that limit. But yeah, I mean, it's a tactic that works. He seems like he's fast enough to win the championship this year, and he seems fast enough to outdo Verstappen, who we thought that was the best of his generation. He is one of the best of his generation for sure, but now he has found Leclerc as a rival and as a worthy opponent for the championship. Speaking of Verstappen, of course, Red Bull is no slouch themselves either. I think they are very fast. They have a very good car on straight lines, which is arguably partly due to that engine and the chassis and how the aerodynamics of the car have been designed by Adrian Newey. But it's not a reliable car at all. Verstappen has lost out 36 points right now. If we think that he would finish second both in Bahrain and Australia, that's 18 plus 18 equals 36 points lost. He won in Jeddah, but he only has those points right now after 3 races, those 25 points. He's sixth in the championship, way far from Charles. I mean, it's a dismal start to the season. It's so frustrating to have a car capable of, if not winning, at least podium finishing, and then you end up with nothing.
Well, yeah, and I don't. None of those DNS were Max's fault. Max is still driving at the level that won him the championship in 2021, but that car it's fast, but it's unreliable, as you said, and it's been seemingly the same issue in regards that it's something to do with the fuel system. And it's all well and good having a quick car if you can't finish, then you're going to you're basically got no chance of winning the title. And I feel that Perez has had the better start to the season compared to Verstappen, and 36 points even at this early stage is still crucial. Because as we know in Formula One, every point counts, and when you're not getting the points you need, and considering the fact that he would only be a few points behind Charles if he'd finished second in both races, then you have to wonder: is the title challenge, starting to show cracks? I don't think it is, because we're only 3 races in, a lot can happen. But yeah, Red Bull have got a reason to be concerned. I don't think it's related to the engine. I don't think it's related to the drivers pushing too hard. I think it's more down to that particular system, which I believe is the pump, which has caused the issues, or something to do with the fuel system, because Max reported some sort of fuel leak, some smell before pulling off to the side in Australia. So that would be something concerned, particularly when we also go to the high fuel consumption races, in the latter part of the European season, which require, the engines to be brutally tested on long straights.
It's a shame, because I always have the the example of McLaren in 2005. I think it was arguably the fastest car on the field that season, but it was really unreliable, and it didn't give the chance to Kimi to actually fight for the championship from all those due to all those reliability issues. And you have to ask: does the Honda departure play any part in this reliability problem? Because yeah, sure, many of those Honda engineers and the Honda factory in Sakura have stayed and help Red Bull and Red Bull powertrains with that new era of F1, the engine freeze and all that stuff until 2025. But it's not the same. The Milton Keynes factory has closed. Many of those Honda engineers have been returned back to Honda Japan and work in other fields of the company. So, do we have an issue that it's not easy to solve? Do we have a problem that it will take a lot of effort from the Red Bull guys and the remaining Honda guys to get on top of?
I think it will take a little bit of time. I think with every transitional relationship, there's always going to be some cracks. And, with Honda, I think the whole transition from Honda to Red Bull powertrains, it was never always going to be smooth. But I think it will take maybe a few races. I don't think it's a massive problem, even if they aren't finishing races. I don't think it's an issue that's going to cause problems for them in the last state in the second half of 2022, maybe early stage of 2023. But they need to get on top of it pretty quickly. And I think whether that means they have to draft in Yamamoto and Tanabe-san back in to supervise the issue and try and get it fixed, that might be the only way to do it, because if you've got them two guys in there who know the Honda engine, I would say even more than the people at Red Bull, then you could fix the issue pretty quickly. But of course, that takes a lot of effort, and plus Yamamoto-san is at Team Go running is their Super Formula team, so it's not like he can just jump on a plane from Japan and fly straight over to Milton Keynes. But they need to get on top of the issue very quickly, because it could be a massive problem, if your car keeps not finishing. And as you said, McLaren experienced that same issue in 2005, and you would maybe even argue that, Williams probably suffered the same issue in the early stage of 94. Although that was a totally different issue, of course.
Yeah, but the reliability concerns were the same, because Horner said something that I think it's total bullshit, if I may. He said, I'd rather have a slow car, I'd rather have a fast car that's unreliable and fix that than, of course, have a slow car that's reliable. But a slow car that is reliable, at the very least, finishes the races. And if you finish the race, you get some points. That's how Mercedes and George Russell are second in the standings right now, because they finish the races, all the races, and especially Australia. Russell benefited from Verstappen's issue and retirement, and he got to get his first podium with Mercedes. But I think that to finish first you have to finish. Okay, that's not a quote that you heard for the first time here, but it's really true. The points are given at the end of the Sunday race. It's not like you can be fast and just don't finish, because there's no points for being fast at all. So I honestly think they have a huge problem in their hands right now. And if Ferrari continues to be as reliable as it is right now, and they continue to be as fast as they are right now, and finish the races in the first or second place with either Sainz or Carlos, they're going to go. They're going to, say, you know what, we have to do it right now. We have to get on top of our issues right now, because we're losing those guys. They are going so far ahead from us. We cannot keep up with them. We cannot catch up. And this added pressure may not work well with them, with Red Bull, I mean. But we shall see. I think, as you said, though, and I want to emphasize that Max is driving as a champion. I think he does the best he could do, because in Jeddah especially, he really understood how Charles tried to outsmart him. And on the third try, he was like, no, I'm not going to play that game again. I'm going to let you keep the position, and I'm going to use the DRS to pass you on turn one, which to me seemed like, I can be as smart as you. We know each other. We can have a great battle. But reliability issues have robbed us from that. So I think Max is really driving as best as he can. I think he's doing his best, and he's driving like a champion.
I would agree with you, but I think both Red Bull guys are driving pretty well at the moment. As I've mentioned on Twitter recently, Perez has had an amazing start to the season. He would have surely got a podium in Bahrain, if it weren't for his DNF and if the safety car had not come out in Jeddah. But Max is driving as well as he did in 2021, maybe even 2020 at times, albeit he was a bit clumsy. I think for Max, I don't feel there's any pressure from his side. He probably knows that it's a marathon, not a sprint. And, he just needs to believe in his abilities. And that's what he's doing at the moment. He's doing pretty good at the moment, albeit still not where he wants to be in the championship, i.e., P5, P6.
Mm-hmm.
But I do feel that qualifying, he is slightly lacking. I think Checo's slightly better over one lap in that car. But that's because Perez has somehow found a rich vein of form in terms of qualifying, and Verstappen may just not have the luck of the rub of the green on his laps. But I completely agree. Verstappen is still driving like the champion that he is.
Yeah, I think that in a sense, Checo has been driving as Red Bull want him to drive, which is be as close to Max as you can and steal points from our competitors. And this is what warranted him a second chance with Red Bull this season, actually, because Red Bull didn't know if they would keep him for 2022 or not when they started their partnership in 2021. But then they decided, you know what, this driver can be near Verstappen's level of competitiveness speed, so we might as well keep him. And of course, it's too early, but one could argue why leave him? Why let him go for 2023 if he's that reliable in his, not just reliable, the right word is consistent with his results and his speed? Why search for another driver? Why promote Pierre Gasly again? But this is a conversation to be had probably near the summer races, probably near July, where the driver market will unfold and see what's going to happen in 2023. But yeah, as you said, as you wrote, as you've written in on Twitter, he is very good this year, and that's good for all of us because we have a battle with Perez and Sainz as well in some occasions, the number two guys. So let's go to Mercedes. I think we have to talk about the champions as well. They do not seem they don't seem like they're in a happy place. I haven't seen Toto Wolff so downbeat and skeptical since probably 2013. And I've said that to you privately. I think Mercedes is in their worst position since 2013. They are competitive, short of, but they're not dominant. They're not a championship winning team right now. They don't have a championship winning car right now. They don't have a race winning car right now, to be exact. But they do have the drivers. They do have, of course, Lewis Hamilton and, of course, George Russell, who I really believe is performing really, really well. But before we go to the drivers, the car is not a pleasant sight, and I'm sure it's not a pleasant drive for them.
No, it doesn't look pleasant at all. And, you can see that, okay, all the cars pretty much have a little bit of poison. But when you watch the Mercedes on board, it is rattling like crazy. It's almost like a roller coaster that's, struggling to maintain, the speed it needs to go whilst holding the passengers. And it's bouncing up and down like crazy. And it doesn't seem like they've really fixed it. Plus, I've heard, it's overweight, which is no surprise. Nearly all the cars are overweight, but the Merc is overweight. And plus, the new concept with the aggressive side pods, I don't know if that's had a hand in their recent struggles. I don't think the engine is particularly handling the new fuel well. And for me, we've spoken about this privately. Toto doesn't seem in a good place, seeing what he sees, and he has every right to be. This is arguably, for me, Mercedes' worst start in 10 years, back when Michael Schumacher and Nico Rosberg were driving for them. And even then, they had a win within, I believe, 2 or 3 races by race 4, which was China with Nico. But it just doesn't seem like they're a very happy camp. But they're not panicking. That's the thing. They're not pulling their hair out thinking, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? They're just willing to take their time. But, of course, leaving the upgrades as late as they are, which is, in 3 races time, it's hardly going to be, it's hardly going to be a positive positive camp, because knowing the fact that the next 2 or 3 races they're going to struggle. But yeah, I think there's a lot going on behind the scene. But I don't think it's just, it's not just the car, it's the engine, it's not just the poisoning as well.
Yeah, it's a whole array of issues. And Toto Wolff has said so. He said that there's a lot of things that have to work on with their car. I honestly think that Mercedes have been on the wrong foot to start the season for the first time since the dawn of the hybrid era, as you said. And it's the first time that a set of regulation, a change in the regulations, has caught them off guard. 2017, they totally got on top of that. 2019, the same. During the pandemic, they didn't lose a beat. Of course, they lost out to Verstappen on the driver's title, but they had the best team and won the constructor's title last season. Now is the first time since 2014 that they have finally, shown that they're not machines, that they have the capacity to make mistakes, which is funny to say for Mercedes. They seemed indestructible since 2014. They seemed like they had the best team, and they did. It's not like everyone else just didn't do well. They did better than them. And it's a discussion you have to start at some point. Has the reshuffling of Mercedes played any part in that performance slump? James Allison has been, quote-unquote, promoted, leaving Mike Elliott as the technical director of the team. Many of the engine guys, the guys who work in Brixworth in the HPP department, have left to join, amongst other teams, Red Bull. So does it seem like the Mercedes era has finally come to an end because lots of people have been either moved from their previous roles to other positions in the company or outright left?
I think it's too early to say the Mercedes era is over, bearing in mind we are, as I've said, 3 races in. But there definitely seems to be an eye off the ball at Mercedes because of James Allison is currently busy with Jim Ratcliffe's America's Cup team, in the fact that he has his hands in that on that side, and of course Mike Elliott has been left to do his job. So I think there is some problems with the fact that Enos wants the Mercedes people to help out with the America's Cup side, but I do think that the departure of so many staff to Red Bull probably didn't help, because they could probably help Red Bull out and the positives and negatives of the Mercedes power unit. But saying that, they have still a very big team, and they should be having a much more powerful engine. I think the budget cap as well probably didn't help matters as well, because Mercedes couldn't spend as much, and they had to move employees on to get inside the budget. So I think it's an array of issues. I think the fact Allison is off to go and run a sailboat. You've got people leaving to go to Red Bull or maybe even Aston Martin. I think have Aston poached a couple of Mercedes employees? I think they have.
Mostly Red Bull ones. Yeah. Dan Fallows, for example.
Oh yeah, Dan Fallows, yeah. And of course, the fact that they've had to, like every other team, deal with having to move staff around with the budget cap has probably not helped things. So it's a whole smorgasbord.
I think also the fact that there have been new rules in place for the amount of hours you can spend on wind tunnel and CFD has played a huge part in that reshuffling of the order. Not just the downfall of Mercedes, if you may, but also the Ferrari uprising, and the fact that Haas and Alfa Romeo as well have been pretty competitive in the midfield this season, or even Alpine as well. They had more time to work on their cars compared to Mercedes or Red Bull, who had less available time with those pretty important tools back in their factories because they were so successful in 2020, 2021. So I have to assume, and it's not unfair to say that these new regulations have played a big part in the competitive order of the season so far, which is what the the Ross Browns and Pat Simmons of this world wanted. But if you are Mercedes or Red Bull, you feel like you've been I don't know, done unfair maybe. But it's the nature of the sport. Sometimes you have to do stuff like that in order to bounce up a field and create a new atmosphere. It's not the first time that the FIA and F1 have imposed new rules to stop the winning teams from winning and help the losing teams to get back on their winning ways again. So yeah, it's a good old reshuffling of the order, which is not by any means a new status quo in F1. Any last comments on Mercedes before we move on?
I would say the driver relationship is pretty good at the moment. I think the odd rumor that the relationship between Russell and Hamilton is not great. I think it's complete balderdash. I think they get on pretty well. So I don't see any problem on the driver front. But I do feel that they will be demanding something a bit more from this car, and maybe even a return to the B-spec, or maybe a B-spec car where they use the Barcelona side pods. If these no-look side pods, or as I like to call them, Brabham side pods, don't tend to work. And, I think they're going to have to make that decision pretty quickly whether they need to make a B car, because the last thing you want to be doing is getting to, let's say, the flyaways and think, oh, we need a B car. Because by then you've left it too late. But that would be my final comment on that one.
I think that not a lot of people assume that Russell and Hamilton would be so close performance-wise. I am really impressed by George's, pace, speed compared to Hamilton. I don't count Jeddah, because Hamilton had a really different setup, and it's not really fair to compare those two because they had virtually different variations of the car. But in both Bahrain and Australia, they were on pretty similar pace. Of course, George got the podium in Australia because Mercedes lost out with Hamilton and the strategy with the safety car. It was just an unlikely situation. But he had the pace to be up there. It's not like he was gifted a podium all of a sudden. He was fifth before all that happened. Of course, he was promoted to fourth, and then Verstappen just retired. You cannot do anything about that. But at the very least, he would be fifth behind Hamilton. And Hamilton is a 7-time world champion, and George is on his first season with a big team, on his fourth season in F1. He doesn't even have a win yet. It's really nice to see. I think it's promising for Mercedes as a whole, the fact that they can count on Russell for the future of the team. Because Hamilton will stop racing either in 2023 or later. I personally think that he may consider retiring at the end of the season should Mercedes not be competitive enough, but we will see. But it's nice for a team to say, you know what, Ferrari has Leclerc, Red Bull has Verstappen, we have Russell. We can count on this boy for many years to come. If we convince him to stay with us and sign a multi-year contract with us, then we are set for the future. Which is a nice thing to say if you are Mercedes, because you see all your competitors have equally talented young drivers on their rosters. So yeah, you must feel secure on that aspect.
And you need a staff, and you need a young driver to become your future kingpin for when, let's say, your lead driver goes. And Mercedes have got Russell, and he's done pretty well. I said though, when it was going to be announced, that I thought he would beat Lewis, and I think my prediction has actually not aged badly for once. I think he is keeping Lewis in check, and it's good for Mercedes too, because the transition has been extremely smooth from Bottas to Russell, and sometimes when you go from drivers, from a senior driver to a younger driver, the transition can take a little bit longer. Look at, let's say, Williams, when they got rid of Damon Hill and put Heinz-Harald Frentzen in. Frentzen may have done pretty well in his first 4 races, but the transition wasn't very quick, and he struggled to beat Jacques Villeneuve. With Mercedes, they've got someone who knows the team, number one. Number two, is extremely quick in his own right. I mean, after all, he did qualify at Williams second on the grid in Belgium, albeit, it was in pouring rain and they'd set the car up beautifully. But yeah, I think it is closer than what many people were expecting. I didn't think it would be, that he would be a million miles away from Lewis, but yeah, he's settled in nicely. Mercedes can build that team around him when Lewis decides to pack it up. And, he could probably jump in as a number one driver when Lewis goes, even if they do sign, let's say, a Pierre Gasly or an Esteban Ocon or even a Max Verstappen, because Toto Wolff does rate Verstappen quite heavily. So who knows?
Ooh, Pierre Gasly in Mercedes.
Yes.
Ooh, spicy stuff.
Yes, of course. Although Ocon might say, hang on a minute, I haven't got that one.
I thought I had dibs on that place in Mercedes. Well, not anymore. Not anymore, my friend. You decided to go with the friends.
And now you're teaming up with Piastri.
Well, I mean, Oscar is a good driver. Well, I mean, should Alonso leave at the end of the season, I think Piastri should be just, you know what, this is my place, right? Right?
Well, there may be a slot at Aston Martin opening up, so there's been the odd rumour that Alonso might go there instead to extend
no.
F1 tenure.
No. Please don't.
The plan. That's now got.
Their plan, yeah.
El Plan has become the plan. The plan, dear boy, not El Plan.
You know what? We're trying to get Sebastian Vettel out of that place in order to just let him go and retire in peace. We're not going to put Alonso in there. I mean, the boy has done a lot of bad decisions in his career. He deserves to not do this one as well.
but he gets a sweet company car. I mean,
well, I honestly would prefer an Alpine A110 than any Aston Martin. I'm honest.
Ooh, that's harsh. I'd prefer an Aston.
No, why would you prefer an Aston? Well, you're British. Is that the British bias speaking?
I knew the British bias was coming out. No, I'd prefer a DB5 or maybe a DBS. Preferably not rolled by James Bond.
Yeah. Well, I don't like the Aston Martins because I think they're poorly made.
I mean, they're not Ferrari good, but I mean, I'd take one. If someone said to me, "Do you want the keys for this for a few days?" I'd say, "Yeah, sure." Just it might come back with half the door missing, but still. But yeah, the silly season's going to be very fun this year. I think with so many drivers out of contract, it's going to be like real life musical chairs. And personally, I'm all for it because I love a crazy driver market.
Yeah, I love it as well. It's honestly one of the best parts of the season when you try to understand what's going to happen. Before we go there, though, let's conclude with the grid. We're not going to talk about all the remaining teams. From the midfield, I want you to tell me which 3 teams do you think have stood out for you from this first part of the season. Name 3 teams from the midfield that you think are the best right now.
Right, Haas are definitely the first one, because did anyone expect Kevin Magnussen to get a P5 on the first race of the season?
Nope.
Probably not, no. In fact, if you'd mentioned Kevin Magnussen returning to Formula 1 in January, they would have probably thought you were probably not putting milk on your cornflakes. But yeah, they've been very impressive. Even if Australia was a bit of a blip, they've got an extremely good car. It seems the year of pain has been worth it, and with the fact that K-Mag and Schumacher Jr. are getting on very well. It's a good atmosphere, and that can only translate into a good points haul. They just need to get Schumacher in the points now, but Mick just needs to find that extra oomph to get there. But I've been impressed by Haas. They've been extremely good so far. Alfa Romeo, again, who expected Alfa Romeo to come out of the blocks? Bottas has found his mojo again after, what was a difficult 2021. But I think he's been a good driver for a long time. And I think he was just waiting for that moment to shine again. Zhou has been impressive. I think, he's made people eat a lot of humble pie as of late. People said I think there was some comments saying he was worse than the driver who was previously driving at Haas, who we won't mention too much.
No, who must not be named, like Voldemort.
Your words, not mine. And I would say the final team that's really impressed me, tough one, because some of them are really jumbled. I would say Alpine are starting to show a little bit of the pace that many were expecting. I think the car has looked competent, albeit very unreliable, and Alonso definitely had the pace to get on the front row of the grid for Australia. If it weren't for that small little problem which caused a hydraulic failure, McLaren are slowly improving, but the proof will be on the pudding on that side when we get to Imola.
Well, I would say Alpine has impressed me the most, because I didn't believe they could actually produce a competitive car in the midfield. Because they've dropped the ball so many times, you just do not expect them to be fast enough. They are unreliable, especially with Alonso's car for some reason. And he's already on the verge of getting some penalties because he will have to change some parts of the engine from the fourth or fifth race of the season, which is really, really early. But they have a car that can actually be regularly on the top 10, so can regularly score points. And who knows, maybe if they get it right with the upgrades of the car, they may as well be able to fight for podiums in an odd chance. Haas and Alfa Romeo, to me, have been really competitive, partly due to the new Ferrari engine. I think that plays a huge role in the competitiveness of their packages, which is really nice to see, because both of them have endured really tough seasons, especially Haas in 2020 and 2021. But I'd like to see them on the long run, because both of them have to get on with some upgrades and try to extract more potential from their cars. I think it's really important, because the whole midfield package will do that pretty swiftly, I think, because they have more potential to improve their package, and that's going to be interesting to see. And I'm going to see it and put a fourth one as well, that to me seems like they have done a fairly good job, which is AlphaTauri. They have managed, I think, to stay on that sweet spot of 6th position. They are not better than the other three teams I mentioned, but they're not worse than McLaren or Aston or Williams. McLaren did seem to make a huge leap in performance in Australia, but we'll have to wait and see if that was partly due to the layout of the track, or if the new updates they brought forward have worked that good that they could be able to that they could be able to get on top of all those aforementioned teams. But yeah, I mean, the one thing that can be said and we can all agree upon is that the midfield does produce a lot of battles once more. I think that we have a lot of drivers and lots of teams being so close together in competitiveness and speed and pace that arguably you could have 3 or 4 teams inside the top 10 from those midfield teams.
Yeah, I think AlphaTauri is still going to be thereabouts. As time goes by, they just need to fix reliability, but that's more down to the Honda side of it. As for, let's say, like Williams, Aston Martin, I'm not sure. Maybe the odd points finish if we have another Hungary 2021 style race, but yeah, I think they're still a bit distant. But for me, I would like to see how, Haas and Alfa Romeo try and keep this level of form up going into the latter stage of the race, particularly like your likes of your Bakus, your Silverstones, your Monzas, your Singapores, when the car is really tested. So at the moment, things are good, but obviously a lot can change in a race with one race weekend in Formula One. So
yeah,
still a long way to go. Don't count your chickens yet. We'll start ordering your Haas P4 Constructors Championship T-shirts.
I mean, they don't even have a shop yet. They're trying to set it up, so
they do have a shop. They just use Mick Schumacher and Kevin Magnussen's personal shops.
Well, that's not having a shop. That's having a portal to other shops.
It doesn't matter though. It's better than nothing. I mean, Benetton don't even sell any of their old F1 gear. And I have to go on Vinted or something like that to just try and find £100 jumper.
Well, why would you buy a Benetton F1 team shirt in 2022?
Because it's cool. It's iconic. It's.
Is it?
Yeah, for me, Benetton Mild 7 was one of the most iconic link-up team brandings. Like that blue and green, blue and white Schumacher Benettons, also with John Lacey as well. Yeah, iconic. But that's because I basically watched too much 90s Formula One. So my bad.
So, car's horn outside my house. What do they want? All right. So, I think that's all. I think we should. That should do it. There's lots to see yet, as you said, Ed. It's too early. Lots of things can change, and I think will change once the teams bring forward their upgrades and we see which of them work and which of them don't. So far, I think we've had a few indications of where all this championship thing in 2022 is going, but of course, lots and lots of stuff can still happen. 20 races to go. And yeah, we have a lot of unknowns yet. So with that, Ed, I would like to thank you very much for coming by.
Pleasure.
You can follow Ed on Twitter at @Spencer _99. I will leave his Twitter handle on the notes. Whenever you decide to listen to the podcast, you will always be able to find it. What else? Yeah, that was Oversteer episode 85. Next Monday, it's going to be back again in Greek. So if you are not Greek and you're listening to this podcast, too bad. This was your only chance. But if you're Greek and you listen to this podcast and you have been bored by my English, you will be glad to know that on Easter Monday, for us Orthodox people, we will have a new episode, and we're going to talk about the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix, which is, of course, on Easter Sunday for us, or, of course, for all the other peeps, it's going to be 24 of April. So, that's all. See you next Monday. Thank you for staying until that point of the podcast, which means you made it. Good job for you. You can always listen to previous episodes we've done, not only with Ed, we've done one more episode with Ed, but with various English speaking, guests, which I find pretty amazing to do because you get to speak with people that have a different perspective from you, and it's always nice to hear their opinions. And of course, if you're Greek, I remind you that you can always follow Oversteer on Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, wherever you want, in order to not miss a single episode. That will do it. Thank you so much. Have a great week, and we hope we have a great remainder of the season. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.